I want you to picture a scene for a moment. It's the mid-2000s, a typical suburban street probably somewhere just north of London.
Right.
Nothing remarkable about it, red brick houses, neat little lawns. And a white delivery van pulls up to the curb.
Standard stuff.
Totally standard. The driver hops out, starts unloading crates, water, frozen peas, a pack of biscuits. But then the passenger door opens, and out jumps Laura Wade-Jury,
The CEO of Tesco.com.
the CEO herself.
Yeah.
And she's not there for a photo op. She isn't shaking hands or anything like that. She is checking her watch. She's looking at the pavement, the curb, the whole setup.
Yeah.
She is literally on the ground, jumping out of a van to see if the logistics actually hold up in the real world.
It's such a great image, isn't it? Because it really captures the whole essence of this case study. It wasn't about the glamour of the dot-com boom. It was about the grit of the last mile. It was about, getting your hands dirty to figure out how to get a pint of milk from a shelf to a doorstep without going broke.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today. We are looking at a really comprehensive case study on Tesco. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Tesco is this retail giant in the UK.
Yeah, if you're in the US, think Walmart scale. But imagine if Walmart also sold high-end organic food and was on every other street corner.
A pretty good comparison. But this deep dive, it's not really about just selling groceries.
No, not at all. It's actually a masterclass in business model adaptation. The core question here is just fascinating. How does a massive, century-old brick-and-mortar company crack the code of the internet when pretty much everyone else was failing?
And failing spectacularly. I mean, the source material highlights the early days of home delivery in the 90s, and honestly, it just sounds like a sitcom.
It really does. You have to remember, before the tech caught up, the back end of online shopping was hilariously analog. The source calls it an operational mess, which I think is being very polite.
Mess is definitely polite. So listen to this process. A customer calls in their order over the phone. A human being has to type it out manually. Then, and this is my absolute favorite part, they would fax the list to the local store.
The fax machine, the backbone of the digital revolution.
Can you even imagine? And the source mentions this Chinese whisper effect. So you order a grapefruit, but the fax comes through blurry, and the picker at the store squints at it, shrugs, and just throws a cabbage in the basket.
Which just kills the customer experience immediately. But that chaos, that's actually where the real insight is. Tesco didn't just try to paste a website over a broken process. They knew they had to fundamentally re-engineer the whole thing.
Right.
And that's where we're going to unpack the strategy, the whole store versus warehouse debate, and how they weaponized data in a way that was years ahead of its time.
But before we get to the high-tech stuff, we need to understand the stakes. Because Tesco wasn't always this dominant player, were they? It's easy to look at them now and just assume they were always on top.
Oh, far from it. Context here is crucial. The modern supermarket era, it really kicks off in the 50s. Tesco actually opened its first self-service store in a converted cinema back in 1956.
Wow, a cinema.
But by the 70s and 80s, they had a serious reputation problem.
The source uses that great phrase, "Kyle it high and sell it cheap."
Which, sure, works for volume, but it just destroys your brand over time. The perception was poor quality, bad service, and just cheap. They were losing the middle class to competitors like Sainsbury's, who were seen as the quality option.
So this turnaround starts way before the internet even arrives.
Exactly. Under Lord Maclaurin and then Terry Leahy, they pivoted hard. They realized they couldn't just compete on price, they needed quality. So they started building these massive superstores to capture that upper market, but, and this is the key, they kept the value pricing.
That feels so important. Because if I don't trust you to pick a fresh apple when I'm standing right there in your store, I am definitely not going to trust you to pick it for me when I order online.
Trust was the currency. And that leads us right to the central tension of this whole case study. The internet arrives, demand for delivery explodes, and every retailer faces the same massive dilemma. How do you actually fulfill these orders?
This is where the prevailing wisdom of the time, the smart money, said you had to build these huge automated warehouses.
Right. Dedicated facilities just for online. Companies like Webvan in the US were burning billions on this model. Everyone said it was the only way you could scale.
It makes sense on paper, doesn't it? I mean, warehouses are efficient, robots don't get tired.
They don't chat with customers, they don't take breaks. But Tesco looked at that model and did something that critics at the time called absolute madness.
They decided to pick the groceries right off the shelves of their existing supermarkets.
They did. And Wall Street, the city of London, they all just laughed. They thought, you're crazy. You're going to have staff pushing trolleys around crowded aisles next to regular customers. It'll be a disaster. It's inefficient.
So why did they do it? Why go so hard against the grain when everyone else is building robots?
It all comes down to a really cold, hard calculation about that last mile. Laura Wade-Jury and her team, they realized the biggest cost in online grocery isn't picking the item off the shelf. It's driving the van to your house.
So geography is destiny.
In this case, yes.
Yeah.
If you build one giant automated warehouse in the middle of nowhere because, land is cheap out there, your vans have to drive hundreds of miles.
Right. Fuel, driver time, wear and tear.
It eats your margin alive. But just think about Tesco's physical footprint.
The source has a killer stat here. 94% of the UK population lived within a 25-minute radius of a Tesco store.
There it is. That is the magic number. The stores were already there. They were essentially mini warehouses sitting right next to the customers. By picking in-store, they kept the delivery loops short and the costs way down.
It was an asset leverage play. They turned their biggest liability, hundreds of physical buildings, into their biggest asset.
And there was this fascinating psychological component, too, with the staff. The pickers, they weren't just grabbing boxes. They were trained to be the eyes of the customer.
That's a huge cultural shift, isn't it?
Massive. The rule was simple. If you wouldn't buy it for yourself, don't put it in the crate. So if a banana on the shelf looks a bit brown, the picker leaves it.
Which then forces the store manager to improve the quality of the fresh produce. Because now, those brown bananas are actually costing him sales.
It created this brilliant feedback loop. Their operations director, Daniel Roberts, he noted that if online quality was bad, it meant the physical store was bad. The online metrics became a diagnostic tool for the entire business. It lifted everyone's standards.
Okay, so the in-store picking model works economically. They've got pickers starting at 6 a.m. to avoid the crowds. Sounds perfect. But success always creates its own problems.
It always does. Scaling breaks everything.
Eventually, you're going to hit a ceiling. I mean, if I'm shopping on a Saturday morning and I'm fighting for aisle space with 5 guys in Tesco uniforms, I'm going to get annoyed.
And you would be right. They hit a serious bottleneck. The aisles were clogged. The back rooms were overflowing. They were becoming a victim of their own success.
So, did they finally cave? Did they build the giant automated warehouses like everyone said they should have from the start?
Not exactly. They evolved. This is the adaptation part. They went for a hybrid solution. First, they built hubs, which were basically just expanded back rooms on their extra-large stores. But then, in 2006, they opened a facility in Croydon that I find absolutely fascinating.
The .com-only store.
Yes. Now, picture this. You drive up to it. From the outside, it looks like a warehouse. Big, gray, industrial. But inside, it looks exactly like a Tesco supermarket.
Huh.
It has shelves, aisles, the same signage, the same layout as the store down the street.
But no customers.
No customers, no checkouts, no crying babies, just pickers.
So it's a dark store.
Exactly. And the brilliance was in the lack of innovation. They didn't have to reinvent their processes or buy expensive robotics. They could use the same trolleys, same software, same staff training. It gave them the throughput of a warehouse with the flexibility of a store.
It seems like they were also thinking about the environmental impact. The source mentions the green vans.
Yeah, they piloted electric zero-emission vans in London and Shrewsbury very early on. It shows they were thinking ahead, though, let's be honest, the main driver was always economic efficiency. But it certainly helped the public image.
Let's shift over to the customer side. We've talked about how they got the food into the van, but what about the person sitting at home on their computer? A bad website can kill a great business, and this is the early 2000s we're talking about.
Right. And back then, websites were often flashy, full of animations, but just incredibly clunky to use. Tesco went the other way. Laura Wade-Jury's philosophy was strictly utilitarian. Find product, buy product, pay.
But they had some features that were really smart. The one that stands out to me, and I think everyone who shops online relies on this now, is my favorites.
Oh, that was the lock-in moment. I mean, think about grocery shopping. It's high frequency, it's repetitive. You buy the same milk, the same bread, the same coffee every week.
Right.
My favorites just tracked your history. You didn't have to browse 20,000 items every time. You just clicked reorder.
It turns a one-hour chore into a 15-minute task.
Which creates a really high switching cost. If you go to a competitor, you have to rebuild that whole list from scratch, and nobody wants to do that.
They also did this neat thing bridging the digital and the human with the notes feature. You could literally type a note to the picker saying, I like my bananas a bit green, or I want the avocado ripe for tonight.
It replicates that conversation you might have with a greengrocer. It's a small touch, but it builds so much confidence. But the biggest friction point, the biggest fear with online grocery is substitution. What happens when they don't have that avocado?
Right, I don't want to pay for something I didn't actually pick out myself.
So Tesco handled this with a very aggressive, customer-friendly policy. If something is out of stock, the driver presents the substitute at your door, say, a different brand of butter. You can look at it right there and say, no thanks.
And they take it back.
They take it back, and you get a refund instantly. It removed all the financial risk for the buyer.
Speaking of removing friction, they also pushed a bagless option pretty early on, didn't they?
Yeah, using stackable plastic crates instead of hundreds of plastic bags.
Yeah.
The driver unloads, takes the crates back, less waste, and actually easier for you to unpack because you aren't drowning in plastic.
Now, we can't talk about Tesco without talking about their secret weapon, the club card.
The club card is arguably the most important piece of this whole puzzle. Launched in 1995, and by the time of this study, they had 13 million members.
And it wasn't just a buy 10 coffees, get one free punch card. It was a data vacuum.
It completely solved what we now call the cold start problem in tech. So imagine you're a loyal Tesco shopper, but you've never used the website. That first time you log in, that blank screen is so intimidating.
You have no idea where anything is. Where do you even start?
Exactly. But if you put in your club card number, boom, the website already knows you. It pre-populates your favorites based on what you bought in the physical store last month. It says, hey, here's that cereal you like.
That is unbelievably smart integration. It makes the whole transition seamless.
And the targeting was so sophisticated. If the data showed you were a vegetarian, you didn't get flyers for the BBQ meat special. If you bought dog food, they'd send you offers for pet insurance. They weren't just guessing, they knew what your life looked like.
That's the difference between junk mail and helpful mail. But there was a big fear, wasn't there? That the online store would cannibalize the physical stores.
That was the big fear in the boardroom. Are we just stealing sales from ourselves? But the data proved the exact opposite. Most customers became multi-channel shoppers.
Meaning what?
They'd do a big bulk order online once a month for all the heavy stuff, dog food, detergent, canned goods.
The stuff you hate carrying from the car.
Exactly. But they would still pop into the store for fresh meat or produce during the week. And here's the kicker. Those multi-channel customers ended up being their most profitable segment. They weren't stealing sales, they were deepening the relationship.
So they conquered food. But Tesco didn't stop there. They wanted to take on Amazon and Argos with Tesco Direct. This is the non-food stuff, electronics, furniture, clothes.
Which presented a whole new set of challenges. Remember the in-store picking model we were just praising? It works for bananas because bananas turn over fast.
But a television.
A 5,000-pound television might sit on a shelf for 6 weeks. You can't stock high-end electronics in every single local supermarket just in case somebody orders one. It's just dead money.
So they had to pivot their strategy again.
Yep. They brought in Steve Robinson, who'd been a director at Argos, and he realized that for non-food, you do need warehouses. He split the products into one-man and two-man delivery.
Distinguish those for us.
One-man is small stuff, DVD players, kettles. Two-man is, a sofa or a fridge. You handle them totally differently in the supply chain. So they centralized these items in warehouses. It was the only way to offer a huge range without clogging up the stores.
And speaking of range, Robinson did something interesting. He looked for gaps in the market. He noticed no major retailer was selling equestrian equipment.
Which seems so random, right? But Tesco started selling horse riding gear, and swimming pools, and garden sheds. They used their massive logistics network to sell niche products you'd never expect from a grocery store.
One thing that seems almost quaint now, but was a huge deal then, was the catalog. They printed a 5,000-page book. Why? I thought this was the digital age.
It's about consumer behavior and trust. People like to browse, they like to circle things. But more importantly, Robinson insisted on owning the photography studio, hiring 40 experts to make sure the picture in the book matched the picture on the web perfectly.
Consistency builds trust.
Precisely. If you see a sofa in the catalog and then you go online and it looks even slightly different, you hesitate. You don't buy. By controlling the imagery, they built a bridge for the non-digital native. You look in the book, you order on the web.
And they kept the pricing simple, too. Good, better, best.
Value options, standard options, luxury options. And crucially, the price online was the same as the price in store. They didn't want customers feeling cheated depending on how they shopped. It was all about transparency.
Now, it wasn't all smooth sailing. When you get this big, you start attracting criticism. The source material quotes Andrew Sims from the New Economics Foundation. He called chain stores invasive species.
That's a harsh comparison. The argument was that these giant chains were destroying the diversity of the high street, turning every town into a clone town.
Where every main street looks exactly the same.
Yeah, and Tesco's rebuttal to that.
What was it?
It was standard free market logic. They said, we only prosper if we give customers what they want. Essentially, their stance was that Sims just doesn't like the choices people are freely making.
There was also a brief mention of privacy concerns around the club card data.
Yes. I mean, holding that much data on 13 million people is a massive responsibility. Tesco insisted they only used it to tailor offers, but you can see why it makes people nervous. It's a lot of power.
It really is. As we wrap up, I want to look at the future, or at least the future as they saw it back then. Laura Waitrey had this vision. I don't have to think about it. It simply works.
She wanted Tesco to just be the answer to everything. I know Tesco will have it. It's about ubiquity. She wanted the brand to just disappear into the background of your life because it was so reliable.
And there's one final curiosity in the source that I think is a perfect precursor to where we are today with health tech. Tesco diets.
Oh, this is a great example of integration. They partnered with an online diet service. You'd get your meal plan, say 1,500 calories a day, low carb, and the system would automatically populate your Tesco shopping basket with the ingredients for those specific meals.
That is so smart. It removes all the friction between I want to be healthy and what on earth do I need to buy?
It's the ultimate convenience. You don't buy food, you buy a lifestyle, and the logistics just happen. It was a glimpse into the future of automated commerce.
So what does this all mean for us? We've seen Tesco turn stores into warehouses and then build warehouses that look like stores.
It raises a provocative question for anyone in business today. In a world of instant data and rapid delivery, does the physical location matter for the experience of the product, or does it only matter for the speed of the product? Tesco realized early on that for you, the customer, the store, is just a concept. It's wherever you happen to be. The physical building is just a node in the network.
That is a thought to chew on next time you see a delivery van pulling up next door. It might just be the most efficient warehouse in the world, just on 4 wheels. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the grocery revolution.
A pleasure, as always.
Catch you next time.